And now, podcasting from the sun-scorched desert Southwest, weighing in at a combined total of 340 pounds, Brad Winchester, Tyler McDowell Blanken, are Gimmick Infringement.
Welcome to the Gimmick Infringement Podcast. I am Tyler McDowell Blanken, one of your hosts. Unfortunately, my co-host Brad is on the IR. We wish him a speedy recovery and look forward to his return. With that in mind, I put out the bat signal, and luckily it reached Gotham City. That's right. I even got the. It's not a rollie, but I got the watch on. That means it's Steffi time. I'm joined by a very familiar face, host of the Salty Thoughts of Mike Steph podcast. Mike Steph is back on GI. Mike, welcome back. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. I'm so fortunate to be able to join you on such a stupendous occasion, recapping what we're going to recap. And unfortunately, Brad is on the sidelines, but being the fact that y'all chose me to be the stand-in, or should I say, keep the standards up high.
I was gonna say not the stand-in, the standard bearer. That's.
I truly feel blessed that y'all entrust me with such situations. So I'm rearing and ready to go.
100%, Mike. Well, we are so happy you're here. You put it out there. Great point. We have a lot that we're going to get into in the worlds of wrestling, playoff basketball, rap beef, and much, much more. Before we get into that, though, Mike, you were last here on GI back in December for our Three Wise Men series, honoring the career, the legacy, the life of the wise man, Paul Heyman. A lot's happened in your world since then. What's going on? How's the family? You got a blog? How's the show? Of course, we'll get the plugs in at the end of this episode. But how's everything been since last year, since December 2023 when we last saw you?
Don, it's been almost 6 months so far. I was going by quick. On a personal front, everything is doing good. My tribal princess was here this past weekend. My youngest grandchild. Yes, put the ones up. So she was here for a couple of days. My son, Chef Mix, aka Mikey, he's moved back to the city. I moved him back home last weekend, so he's definitely in effect. My wife is doing wonderful. The lovely Mia and Main Event K, they're doing great. So I really can't complain. On a professional or hobby front, I started a blog at WordPress, MikeSteph.org at WordPress.com. We'll get into that later. So that's just another outlet for me to share my salty thoughts. And the salty thoughts of Mike Steph. Yeah, we had our 50th episode a couple weeks ago, and my 200th episode as a podcaster in general a couple weeks ago. They was concurrent. And right now I'm just trying to ride this Knicks train for as long as I can, hence the blue and orange paraphernalia, or the regalia, if you will. So yeah, I'm doing great. I'm just I'm really happy and I'm really hyped to be back on GI, the original GI bro right here.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, man. I love it. Again, so glad you're here. Let's get into it, Mike. Let's waste no more time.
Okay.
WWE. We usually start here. We definitely got to start, given that it was Backlash weekend from France. 12,000 fans packed in the arena, singing. Just lots of singing, Mike. Lots of cheering. Lots of investment in the matches we saw. Relatively short pay-per-view. Only 5 matches on the card, but definitely an entertaining show. Let's just run down the matches that we saw, and then I want to get into the questions that we have for you. Show kicked off with the Bloodline defeating Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. Tonga Loa appeared. The Bloodline continues to gain members, and Solo and Tama Tonga again were victorious, defeating Kevin Owens and Randy Orton there. Next, Bayley, who we know you're a fan of, Mike. She defended her championship. She defeated Naomi and Tiffany Stratton. Damian Priest was also successful. He defeated main event Jey Uso. I'm concerned that Jey Uso is becoming the new LA Knight, super duper over, but doesn't win the big matches for gold. Maybe we'll get into that in a little bit, Mike. Final two, Bianca and Jade are now tag champs. They defeated the Kabuki Warriors. In case you're not on YouTube, Mike is very excited about that news. So we'll hear his thoughts in just a sec. And then, of course, our undisputed champion, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, defeated AJ Styles. Of course, the crowd was pro Cody. This guy is popular seemingly anywhere on the entire globe. And good for AJ Styles to get a main event. I think we forget, he's a future Hall of Famer. He's on the roster, and certainly he's in great shape right now. So I'm eager to see where he goes from here. But I'm glad that he got this particular main event. So let's get into it, Mike. Rather than kind of going match by match, and certainly feel free to tell us what stood out to you in that regard. But rather than a match by match breakdown, we have 3 categories regarding this year's Backlash. First category, I'm going to pass it right to you. Who was the biggest winner from the show?
That's a good question. I'm going to go on the path that would not be expected. The biggest winner would be Tiffany Stratton. I know it's definitely that time. That triple threat match between her and Naomi and Bayley, I want to say that was probably one of my top 3 women's matches of the year so far. Naomi, the time that she spent away at Impact and really concentrating on her betterment as an overall wrestler, and now coming back into the WWE environment and being slotted in and having that confidence behind her of, yeah, I did it on my own. Now I'm back underneath the tent and I can still show my wares. That was great. Bayley being the cagey veteran, leading that match, actually being the focal point as champion this time without having to be one half of something. The whole focus is on her. Stands out. But Tiffany Stratton, and we saw this back at Elimination Chamber where she showed out, and then it seemed like they tried to pull back on her because it was like, well, the crowd is getting behind her, but we're not ready to really to press that button yet.
Right. She wasn't on the Mania card.
At all.
I thought for sure after Elimination Chamber, Mike, that it was a given. I mean, Brad and I spent time talking about who's going to win, who needs to win, Tiffany Stratton or Bianca Belair. I thought for sure she was going to be, in Philly for that on the card. But to your point, yeah, she wasn't, and it seemed like a little bit of a cool off period.
Yeah, and I think that was on purpose. So for her to show her moveset and for the crowd to be behind her, it's kind of a double-edged sword of, yeah, it's popular, but at the same time, they want to slot her as a heel, and she's getting all these face pops that might be counterproductive going forward. I think by SummerSlam, they're going to be forced to put the title on her. So I would say out of the 5-match card, who took the next step into their personal progression for the company, I would say Tiffany Stratton. She would be the biggest winner.
I'm not mad at that. I agree with you. It's clear that she is next up. I think she's for sure the woman to dethrone Bayley. We love Bayley. We don't want this to happen imminently, but I could absolutely see Bayley versus Tiffany being the route for SummerSlam in Cleveland, and Tiffany already going over. What do you think it is about her, Mike? What stands out to you? Because we've had the privilege of watching her grow in such a major way from NXT 2.0 to now. She's translated so seamlessly on the main roster. Do you think it's a case of that total package of the in-ring work mixed with her fully embracing the character? What is there one specific aspect of her game that you want to point to? Because she's just been an absolute revelation.
I want to say it's a combination of things. The time that she had the rivalry with Becky Lynch in NXT before she got called up, I believe has paid dividends. because it gave her more exposure, and she was able to hang with Becky back and forth during that rivalry. It wasn't like Becky was leading her by the nose. She definitely did hold her own. And then when to come up to the main roster and have that confidence, that aura of confidence, it's not like she's a deer in headlights. And I think the crowd has picked up on that. It has helped that a lot of her exposure has been outside the country, and I think they perceive things a little bit differently than here in the US when it comes to certain figures. So her being pretty much like the model of what you would think or what a lot of men would want in a woman, to say the least, probably has helped, and she has backed it up in the ring. So I think it's a combination of all that, and she's fit seamlessly in. Yeah.
And like you said, Mike, and then we'll go to the next category. It really is about the crowd investment. I mean, you and I have been watching wrestling long enough to know that's really what propels a wrestler into superstardom. You can be an awesome in-ring worker, but when the crowd is invested in you and your trajectory, then I mean, there's there can be potentially no ceiling on where you can go. And Tiffany Stratton already has that, which is pretty incredible. Let's get into the next question here, Mike. Did you want to add something? Please.
One thing to add.
Please do.
At the end of the match, when Bayley rolled up Naomi for the win,
Naomi did.
A lot of people might have missed it, but just the camaraderie, like the outside the ring camaraderie between Naomi and Bayley, was on display when they just kind of embraced, and Naomi gave it a hug and a kiss, like, all right, you got me, and rolled out like, all right, now it's your moment. And she just, I love that sisterhood. I just loved it. So I just wanted to bring that.
Is there any part of you that thought Naomi was going to turn on Bayley?
No.
Really?
No.
A little part of me might thought, maybe Naomi is going to pump fake Bayley here.
I could, because I guess I was thinking two steps ahead. If you turn Naomi, where does she go? Yeah, she has a few, and then that's it. She has such an investment, being the fact she just came back, and everybody knows the backstory. Turn her on heel would be a bad move.
Where I wonder, where does she go now after this match? As happy babyface, we root for her and Naomi. Jade versus Bianca. We got the big three situation, but Jade and Bianca are champs. You and I just slotted Tiffany Stratton into a feud with Bayley. Where does Naomi go?
I believe unfortunately for now, she'll be a gatekeeper, meaning she'll be that person for that next heel that's going to go into contention to have to get past in order for them to get Bayley.
Naomi's going to lose that program, presumably.
Yeah, because she's already slotted as 1/3 of the big three, so that would be something that she'll still hang on to. And she still has a friendship with Bayley. So her popularity is solidified. Her place in the pecking order is solidified. She knows she's not going to be a prelim. She's not going to be a jobber to the stars, but she's not going to be the main event. This is her main event right now. And I think she'll just be right below the main event picture.
Okay. Yeah, it's something to keep an eye on, because I agree with you. Well said regarding her time in TNA. Then Impact, now TNA. She was a face, if not the face, of that company during her time there. I thought it was just a great reminder of how much of a star she is, and how, you give her, put the company on her shoulders and watch her do great things. She's got that in her. Watch her glow. Okay, Mike. Let's go. The GI bro himself. Yes, sir. Okay, we got two more categories. Okay, we got some other topics. Let's get into this next one. You
didn't say your winner.
Oh, wow.
I know. I just kind of monopolized the whole segment. But
no, you didn't. No, you did not. This is just me trying to be a better host. So I have some honorable mentions. Jade Cargill, number one. I'm so happy she has gold already. To me, it's another reminder that WWE sees how much of a mega star she is, that already, within the calendar year, she's in a super prominent position. So Jade's up there for me. Cody, just be it over everywhere in the song and the fandom. Even in countries abroad, they still just love him. He's there for me. Bailey, of course, the crowd was serenading her. Randy Orton is my final honorable mention. The crowd loving the In My Vein song. I was not ready for that. It's clear how much he's appreciating this. It kind of feels, Mike, like I think you'll appreciate this. Or maybe not, actually. Where Randy Orton is right now kind of feels like a Derek Jeter final dance, like, appreciation tour. I think Randy still got years in him, knock on wood, but it seems like he's really starting to soak in the adulation from the audience and vice versa. I love your face right now with that Jeter reference I just gave. And I don't regret it at all. And likewise, the fans appreciating, oh man, like Randy's been doing this for 20 years. We don't know when he's going to hang up the boots, whether by choice or not. We need to really show him and give him those flowers. It was evident to me when I saw him in SmackDown. He main evented against Austin Theory, and the crowd on air and off air was just showering Orton with love. So I thought he was definitely a winner. But my final answer, Exposition Jones here, long-winded, it's got to be Solo for me. Solo Sikoa. He's my biggest winner. Did you see that stat? It was on the timeline a few months ago. I think Solo went something like 0-34 last year in, no pun intended, solo action.
Yeah.
That's not. He's the enforcer. He's the street champ. He can't be going winless for 12 months. So for him to get a big win, even if it was by nefarious means, that was huge. Obviously, he is the face of this new heel Bloodline 2.0. Big look for him. And I just thought that was really imperative that he got the win. KO had a great sell, bumped perfectly from the spike. I just think he's shaping up to have a really, really huge year.
I agree. Great honorable mentions.
I appreciate you. I wouldn't have happened if you didn't remind me that we were supposed to be a two-way street here.
Now listen, I felt guilty.
This one is going to be much more efficient, Mike.
Okay.
Which show was better? Backlash 2023 or Backlash 2024?
I'll go with recency bias because I vaguely remember. The only thing I really remember out of 23 was the Bad Bunny Damian Priest match where you had all the cameos. You had Savio Vega. You had the return of Carlito. And that crowd was crazy. This year, based on the card, I want to say 24. I would say the crowd, but I'm not going to lie. By the main event, I was sick and tired of the crowd. I really was. Because while they did add an aspect to the show that you normally don't get with the singing, I want to say by the main event, it was almost borderline like they was taking over the show because they were doing that phenomenal thing.
That. Mike, I thought that was going to be an unofficial hot take from me. I totally agree with you. They were getting themselves over. I didn't like it after a while. Let the talent shine. Are we the only two that felt that way? Much love to our French audience here at GI.
Yeah, ooh la la, ah oui oui.
But it was a little bit much. It was a little extra, was it not?
Yeah, like I said, especially the main event between Cody and AJ. I think they said on commentary that the song that they were singing was a homage to AJ for his phenomenal tagline. And I'm like, okay, but it's kind of throwing off the dynamic of the match. A couple times they actually missed a 2 count or a close call because they were so intent on getting their song over. And like I said, I understand it's a cultural thing, but it was grating to my nerves. So, but besides that, since that, I want to say 24 over 23.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I thought we were going to disagree on this one for sure. So I'm a little shook. Much love to everyone out there in France. They paid money to get into the show. They enjoyed themselves. That's what matters. But we got to answer this question and give criteria. I agree with you, Mike. Bad Bunny versus Priest was obviously very fun last year. Zelina Vega having her moment in Puerto Rico, that was amazing. Even if she didn't win the match, I still think about that. Like you said, the cameos we got. I actually like this year's main event more. I like Cody versus AJ more than Cody versus Brock. I might be in the minority there, but overall, two super hype crowds. For me, it's a no-brainer though. I'm going with Backlash 2023 over 2024.
Okay. I get it. Like I said, it's recency bias on me because I literally just saw it at 6:00 this morning.
Yeah.
It's fresh.
No. At both shows had a lot of positives, and WWE's in a really great position right now. But I'm going 2023. That was my favorite show of not only last year, but my favorite show in many years. Actually, I still have a lot of affection, a lot of affinity for what we saw a year ago. Final category though, Mike, as we wrap up our WWE Backlash conversation.
Okay.
We just spoke about the last 2 years. Backlash is as noteworthy as it's ever been. My final question for you: has Backlash become the best B level PLE?
Well, based on the last 2 years, I guess you would say yeah. Now I'm going to throw a question back at you. When you say B level, are you including the blood money pay-per-views?
Yes. So yeah, let's run down the list. I looked this up. We're talking Night of Champions.
Okay.
We're talking Crown Jewel. I kind of want to put Money in the Bank there, but I don't think we're ready for that conversation yet. It's still a big five. They have it in the big state. Yeah, I hear you. I think it's a little overrated, but we'll exclude Money in the Bank from this conversation. Yes, we're talking Crown Jewel, Night of Champions. I had another one on here that I'm forgetting. Elimination Chamber, I would add to this list as well. I'm picking Backlash over all of them based on how these past 2 years went.
I have to disagree with you on that one because I really opened my head. I would say Elimination Chamber. The Elimination Chamber is a direct correlation to what happens at the Elimination Chamber that affects the granddaddy of them all, WrestleMania. We had last year in Montreal with Roman and Sammy. This year, even though if you're going into it, you looked at you looked at that Perth card, you're like, it's all right. But those chamber matches definitely showed out. And then you even had Rhea and Nia with Nia Jax's best match ever. So in 2 back-to-back years in international countries, they put on A-level stuff. So I'll go with Elimination Chamber.
It's a convincing case. I already forgot about this year's Elimination Chamber in Perth and Rhea getting her moment and the matches we got. Yeah, I'm still rolling with Backlash, Mike, but your case is super valid. I wonder what our audience thinks. Hit us up at GIPod19. Is Backlash the best B level, respectfully, PLE? Are you going with Mike and saying Elimination Chamber, or do you think both of us are wrong and you're choosing a third option? Let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Mike, how do you feel about 50 Cent's debut album, Get Rich or Die Trying? Do you remember listening to that in 2003?
Oh, it's a classic. Like I had the bootleg.
Putting yourself on the Summer Jam screen. Okay.
Yes. I
enough time has passed. Yeah.
So, but no,
statute of
it was a classic. It was a classic.
Absolutely. Well, last week, Mike, Brad, and I spoke not only about Get Rich or Die Trying, but the year 2003. That's when the album came out. That's also the year that our sponsor, Grand Patio, was just beginning to launch their company, believe it or not. And Grand Patio exists to ensure you're all set for the great weather and great memories that await this spring and especially heading into summer. Again, for over 20 years, Grand Patio has partnered with renowned designers to create livable and luxurious collections that can transform your backyard into a personal oasis. Check this out. Their products include umbrellas, recliners, gazebos, sectionals, and much, much more. Visit our affiliate link, grandpatio.sjv.io/GIPod. I'm going to give it to you with the details here because it is case sensitive. Once again, that's all lowercase. grandpatio.sjv.io/G, I, P, lowercase OD to shop their collection today. Mike, we're going to roll right into it. Before we talk AEW, before we get back to the graphs, we couldn't have you on and not talk playoff basketball. So this is going to be a very special edition of Back in the Day. Let's hit the music.
And now it's time to get old school. Prepare yourselves for Back in the Day.
All right, Mike, it is time. I've been eagerly awaiting this conversation. This NBA postseason marks the 20-year anniversary of the 2004 NBA champion Detroit Pistons. I know we're thinking of Brad here. I wish you were on for this conversation. That finals matchup, it was so interesting because you had Detroit taking on the star-studded LA Lakers. Kobe, Shaq, the golden years of Karl Malone and Gary Payton. They were all rocking the purple and yellow, or the purple and gold that particular year. Detroit's starting five was less glossy, but they played with a ton of grit and chemistry. Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, no relation. Mike, as I watched your beloved New York Knicks take out Philly, I saw a lot of similar characteristics. Dante and Deuce are shooting like Rip. Hardenstein is a force in the paint like Ben. And Jalen Brunson is balling. Are this year's Knicks the reincarnated 04 Pistons? And what are your expectations heading into the series against the Indiana Pacers?
Okay. I'll say this. The comparisons between the Knicks and those '04 Pistons um, primarily center around the cohesion of the team. What's the saying? This the sum of the parts, or something to that effect. Matter of fact, edit that out. But but yeah, it's pretty much the cohesion of the team. Like you said, we have Brunson, who is head and shoulders above what most of the media pundits expected of him. Um, we have a defensive-minded coach and Coach Thibodeau. Back then, I think they had Larry Brown. In the middle, we have a two-headed monster with Hartenstein and Mitch Robb. And we're actually missing multiple pieces. We're missing, not my favorite, but a considerable cog, Julius Randle. People forget he's 29. He's 25-9 at any given time. He averages 25-9. We're without him. We don't have Bogdanovich anymore. Not saying that he was an integral part, but still he was a key cog. Like right now, we're going 7 deep, and that's probably being kind of everybody else that's actually getting a little bit here and there. Now, the 04 Pistons, they had, I want to say, even though it's a different era of basketball, they have more scoring. They had more scoring options. You had Rip, who could go for 30. You had Chauncey, who could go for 30. Tayshaun could give you 20 on a given night. And then you had Rasheed Wallace kind of on the back end of his career, but just that steady presence, both on the offensive and the defensive part, to control the post. And then you had Ben Wallace just wiping anything that came into the hole. Now with the Knicks, everything centers around Jalen Brunson, for good or for bad. And for the last 2 years since he came into the franchise, it's been for good. Now we have all the pieces that fit around him. But the one piece that we have that we could not do without is Josh Hart, who if it wasn't for Josh Hart, we wouldn't have got out of that 6-game series against Philly, because he consistently came through in the clutch. The camaraderie between him and DiVincenzo and Brunson, stemming back from the Villanova days, that has helped a lot. We don't have that defensive stalwart mentality that Detroit had, but we do have the grit and the grind that they had. As in, we're going to outwork you. We're never going to let go of the rope. We're never going to give up. and we're going to fight to the last gun. We're going to fight to the last buzzer. Now, if the question is which one do I think is better, I'm almost going to say something blasphemous, but I can't because look at what colors I have on. So I'm going to say this version of the Knicks is better than the 04 Pistons, but at the same time, I'll give this caveat before I pass it over to you. That version of the 04 Pistons was the culmination of a team that I believe had, and I'm probably going to shortchange them a couple years. I think they had 6 or 7 consecutive years in the conference finals before they finally got to the finals, got to the hump. So that was a constant, a team, a work in motion, work in progress. These Knicks, this is our second year in this progress. So I'll say the Knicks because, like, why would I not say the Knicks? But the Pistons, that was like a decade worth of work that finally paid off. And also they did come in contact with a team in LA that was on its last legs, that was doing a lot of infighting. They had a lot of people that was just trying to get on the bandwagon for a fake ring, such as Karl Malone, who we'll speak about later when we talk about Drake.
There's a lot of connected the dots on this episode. I'm telling you.
But yeah,
Bogdanovich traded from Detroit to New York. We're gonna bring up.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes here.
So yeah, my pick is the Knicks. I have to go whole team.
Yeah. Well, I'm not mad at that. Obviously, my mom is a huge Knicks fan, so I've always had a soft spot for New York basketball. I just think I see just the vibe of that team. I remember watching the 04 Pistons and then seeing what we have in the Knicks now. Like you said, Mike, the grit, the chemistry, the just the brand of basketball they play. It's not flashy. It's not pretty at times, but they get the job done. And someone like Josh Hart, right? Not a top 5 pick with a lot of acclaim. He had a great career at Villanova, obviously, but he's someone who's had to work to find his spot and find his role. And it seems like New York has become that home for him. I would say much like a Chauncey Billups or like a Rasheed Wallace, who had stops. They were more acclaimed, I would argue, than Josh Hart. But when you find that home, that city, that franchise that fully embraces you, and that's where you can just become the player you were always meant to be. So I love seeing that for Josh Hart. Isaiah Hartenstein, really savvy, really shrewd free agent pickup. I believe they got him in free agency. No one was talking about him before this year, but you watch him in the playoffs and you're like, oh, this dude is real legit. And then of course the comparison for me between Jalen Brunson and Chauncey Billups, Jalen Brunson is just really, he's become a superstar. Now, people were saying this man was overpaid when the Knicks got him. Signed him for what, 25, 28 mil a year after that Dallas run in the playoffs when they defeated my beloved Phoenix Suns. It was so clear Brunson was going to be that dude, but I don't even know if I saw that he had this in him, that his bag was this deep. So, I'm going to be pro New York all day, every day. We'll have to get Brad's take next week. But my final question for you regarding the Knicks, Mike, I guess it's a 2-part. One, I would love to know from you, being our New York correspondent, what is the vibe like around the city with this team and specifically with Jalen Brunson? Because from my Knicks expert in the desert, from my mom, from what I see and listen to, it seems like he's become the most beloved Knicks player since Patrick Ewing. I think there's something to be said for the point guard of the Knicks being the best player on the team, right? We know New York City and point guards, that they're synonymous with each other. What's the vibe around the city? Question A. And then question B, are the Knicks going to get the job done? We know they're going to beat the Pacers. Come on. They're going to get through these guys. Shout out to our Indiana fans out there. But are they going to beat Boston? Dare I say, can this be the year they go all the way and bring the championship back to MSG? Vibe around the city, and how real are these guys?
Okay, the vibe around the city is insane. Jalen Brunson, and I was watching a couple shows that they was actually debating this. And of course, I'll give a shout out to brother from another with Michael Smith and Michael Holley. They was talking about whether or not Jalen Brunson was the superstar that we sorely was looking for the last 10, 15, pretty much forever since Patrick Ewing. And like you said, having your best player on the team be a point guard, we've been looking for a point guard for my whole life. You know, we had Mark Jackson. He came, he was doing great, then he left, and then when he came back, he was sort of at the end of the stick. And you know, I mean, he wasn't the same. I mean, look, the times we got into the finals, we had Derek Harper, which was great, but he was also at the end of his rope. And then we had Charlie Ward. Like who did we have? You know, if the one year that we actually got past the first round, prior to that, you have something to say?
I was gonna say, can I sell you on one Stephon Starberry from New York, from Coney Island? At that. If you're not watching us on YouTube, I highly encourage you to. But Mike, he was sold as the prodigal son returns home. He's selling $15 sneakers to the community. What a great dude! I went to Stephen Barry's. I got my white pair. I got my black pair. I got the little jersey and the little joint too. I was outside, but Brunson already. Point being, Brunson already has surpassed all of these point guards of the past 20 to 25 years. It's pretty incredible. It seems like he may not even need to deliver a championship this year because he's already done so much to make the Knicks relevant again.
I don't
fair or unfair.
No, that's fair. I believe as long as Brunson is healthy and we continue to put the pieces around him, this is the first time in I say 25 years at least that I actually believe that the Knicks are championship contenders this year and going forward. Every other year, and like I said, this is no shade to Carmelo because I'm actually rocking this shirt right now. That iteration of the Knicks, yeah, we probably could have gave the Heat a run, but we wasn't winning no championship. This with just his mentality, just for the fact of, all right, I averaged 40 points these last 4 games, and guess what? It meant nothing to him. It's like, look, if we lost, he had 41 in the loss. He's like, look, okay, and we got a game 6. We should have ended it today. He took everything on his shoulder. Like, look, I should have told the team we was going to foul. Just his mentality, he's going to put us over that hump. So I don't think anything is impossible. Indiana, yeah, I think we're going to beat Indiana. Boston, I'm not scared of Boston. Boston chokes every year. They get to the conference finals every year, and they choke. The one time they got into the finals, they was up 2-1, and they didn't win another game.
I'm here for the Boston slander. Shout out to Warren Shaw and Cali, NBA Based on podcast. Check them out.
Yeah, so I have no fear, and we played Denver tough. You know, if Denver gets out of there, so I think the world is our oyster. And as for the other, whether we're going to get to the hump, we're going to get over the hump. You know, it would not be a disappointment if we don't win the championship. To me, it would be a disappointment if we don't get to the conference finals. We got to the semifinals last year. We get to the conference finals this year.
You got to beat Indiana. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, reset everything during the offseason if we don't go any further. And then next year, it should be, I won't say championship or bust, but that should be the expectation. Finals or bust. Mm-hmm. You know, so yeah, the vibe in the city is great. Like, I bet my boy just told me. My boy just told me, I'm gonna wrap it up, but my boy just told me that on road games they're actually having the Garden open so you can go in and watch the games on the big screen. And if it coincides with one of my days off, best believe I'm going to the Garden because the Garden is a vibe. I'll be seeing it on MSG after the game. I'm like, should I go there just to hang out? I don't know. You know what? Why not?
Listen, brother, I can tell just from the couch in Arizona. There's when the Knicks are good, MSG. I mean, I'm telling that to the prodigal son, Mike Steph, of Brooklyn, New York. You know, it hits different, even from the screen, thousands of miles away. It's incredible that the Knicks are back.
Yeah, so I think it's gonna. Yeah, listen, I have the utmost faith. It's not like they're gonna ever shortchange us for effort. And that's the one thing about this team. Even if they lose, it's not going to be lack of effort. It's not going to be for selfish play. It's like, look, all right, look, we got beat today. Guess what? We strap them on again next. Look, we got players playing 47 minutes a game and not complaining and coming back and playing another 47 minutes.
I hope it's sustainable.
Listen, mind over body. That's how that should be our that should be
It's a vibe. I hope so. Yeah.
be our, our
Yeah.
forte. So
Yeah. I'm gonna take that as a no comment for Starberry.
yeah. That's
okay.
That'll be. We went to high school around the same time. He went to Lincoln. I went to Brooklyn Tech. Right now, I'm not saying it was a rivalry or anything, but long story short, my school finally got into the playoffs, and we were one game short of going to MSG. Do you know that Stephon Marbury outscored our whole team by himself? The score was 73-37. He had 39 points.
Just flipped this. Wow. He was.
Yeah, he had an inbound.
It was incredible.
Off the inbound alley oop that pretty much, because there were scouts in there, because everybody knew he was headed to Georgia Tech, but they didn't know whether he was going to do 1 year Georgia Tech or he's going to go straight to the league.
Right. Yeah.
So there were scouts there. He was showing off. So that's the reason why I can't give a unbiased take, because it was high school, but I remember that in Hunter College, I remember him putting on the show.
You had the Starberry joints though.
No,
correct me if I'm wrong.
My kids did,
but you didn't have a pair.
No. Listen,
did you have the jersey?
No. Listen, I appreciate what he did for the community. I will never knock anything he did for the community, because he did a lot more than a lot of people would have did. Like, he forego all the sponsors. Like, look, I'm putting out my own sneaker.
He got the tattoo on the dome too.
Yeah.
Saw the little.
I'm going into the inner city. I'm giving out all these all these free sneakers to people during, before school and everything. I will give them the utmost respect for that. Trust me. I applaud them. I applaud them to this day. I wasn't rocking the Starburst. I'm sorry.
Maybe we gotta tackle this one off air, because I proudly have my two pair. But
we could do that.
Yeah, I mean it's obviously we drop every Monday, right? We're gonna have Indiana versus New York tonight. If you're listening to this episode the day we dropped it, I'm excited to track what the Knicks do, Mike, and obviously we're gonna tap into your thoughts. Speaking of tapping into your thoughts, Mike, we got to discuss some All Elite Wrestling. It's been a minute since we talked AEW with you. Again, we had you back on in December. It was strictly about Paul Heyman. And the people want to know, where is Mike at with All Elite Wrestling these days?
Y'all really want to know?
Of course we do. I'm here to ask the hard-hitting questions. Mike, let's talk AEW. I have 3, I was going to say quick hitters. Maybe they're just hitters for you. Okay. Here's how I want to approach this conversation. I first want to know, what are your thoughts on the Elite? And I have some very, very quick background, which I have in front of me. Hold on. This is going to go off without a hitch. Okay, Mike. So the Elite, right? Obviously, the EVPs are using their title for nefarious means. Okada's here. Jack Perry is back. They destroyed Tony Khan 2 weeks ago. They beat up Kenny Omega last week in Canada. What are your thoughts on this current storyline?
Okay, I'll give them a thumbs up for the fact that they actually have so far a coherent storyline, because a lot of times it's just be throwing stuff against the wall and see if it stick. Now, the Elite, this new version of the Elite with the Bucks, Okada, Jack Perry. To me, which one of those things don't belong? I feel personally, and like I said, it's still early. It's still early, and I'm going to let your listenership and your viewership know from jump. I'm a WWE fan. I wear it on my sleeve. So I'm not saying I'm biased, but at the same time, that's where I lean. So but take that for what you want. Okada, to me, should be a focal point. He should not be part of a bigger story. He should be one of the focal points, like they're attempting to make Will Ospreay. He should be one of the focal points of, okay, he was a big deal in Japan. Let's show you why he's a big deal here. He should not be in part of an ensemble cast. That's my personal feeling. But from the angle that they did with Tony Khan, does this mean that Tony Khan is being written off? Well, as of last week, it doesn't look like he's being written off. As of the NFL draft, looked like he had a lot of movement in that neck brace. He thought it was a big joke.
It's true. And we did see him on Dynamite, right? He opened Dynamite and said, I'll be running Dynamite remotely here from Jacksonville. And then it cut out on the Elite. So
but why was that necessary?
We're running things around here.
Why was that necessary? Like, by him being on the screen, and it's not like he addressed what exactly happened. Well, these are the sanctions I'm going to attempt to put in place, or these are the sanctions. Well, they left that for the Bucks to explain. But once you saw him at the very beginning and he didn't really talk about what happened last week, you should have known something was coming up, because when does he ever open Dynamite? The narrative structure, if you will, was broken as soon as you see him about to happen. Why is he on my screen? Okay, he's still in Jacksonville. Why is he in the house recuperating? No, he's at Daly's place. Okay, why? Because he's doing it remote. Anyway, Jack Perry to me has the most potential out of the four to pop in this storyline, because they really never explained. They said, yeah, he was gone. They never explained why he was gone. And I'll say for the AEW faithful, because they do pay attention to all the auxiliary things that go on around the show. He's on he's doing the interview talking about, Jack Perry, I sent them on excursion, but wasn't he suspended? So what is it? Is he suspended? Or why did you send him on an excursion? Because, well, didn't something happen? You showed the footage. He's the scapegoat. For what reason? That was never really explained. So, like I said, there's a lot of holes that I could punch in, but I'm choosing to watch, and I'm choosing to keep a lot of my thoughts, I won't say to myself, but in the mindset of, there are close personal friends of mine that do enjoy AEW. So therefore, I do not want to come across as the narrative police. Like, why is this? Because y'all could do the same thing with NXT, WWE, and so forth. So I don't want this to be a tribalistic thing. But certain things concerning that is like, I don't know. So I'll give it room to breathe. There's a lot of other things on that show that I think should take precedent over the storyline, but I get why, and we'll get into that pretty soon. But yeah, that's my convoluted way of saying of how I feel about this Elite thing.
Well, speaking of storylines, where are you at with the two women's programs for Double or Nothing? I am happy that we have two women's title matches announced for the pay-per-view weeks and weeks in advance. There's no doubt that we are going to see them. So on one hand, we have Serena Deeb versus Toni Storm, Professor versus the Timeless One. Then we also have Willow Nightingale versus Mercedes Moné. Thoughts on these two storylines, these two rivalries?
Okay, first, Willow and the CEO, Mercedes Moné. Why are they fighting over the TBS championship? You have this big acquisition in Mercedes. Everybody knows her background. You hyped up her debut, and she comes in and she's the CEO, and technically she's focused on the second championship in the women's division. Think about it. You have timeless Toni Storm, this champion that's created this character that's captivated a lot of the fan base, that's captivated, dare I say, some type of mainstream exposure. And you have one of the people that you brought in to capitalize on even more mainstream exposure. She's like, you know what? The world championship? Nah, I don't want that. I want the TBS championship, before Willow even got into it. And how come? Okay, I gotta keep myself. So Willow, I love the fact that Willow is the TBS champion because it finally they did capitalize on whatever momentum she had winning the Owen Hart tournament, the Owen Hart Cup. It was like, yeah, you won that, and then what? Fine. She was having more success outside of AEW until very recently. So now she's the TBS champion, and that, tell you the truth, was almost like a means to the end. Like, all right, let's put the belt on her because she has this rivalry with Mercedes over something that happened not in AEW vernacular, but happened in New Japan Strong. That, all right, hopefully y'all know about what we're talking about. Yeah, you got injured, but did you really get injured? But neither here nor there. That's the rivalry that they created, right? Now we went on the other side. It's such a dichotomy of characters. You have Timeless Tony Storm, which is a gimmick in front. It's a gimmick, and it's a great gimmick. And then you pretty much have no gimmicks needed. Serena Deeb, the professor. I personally liked her incarnation that she had prior to, I guess, her injury, because I know she was off TV for a while. I believe she was injured.
She was.
I like heel Serena Deeb because she reminded me so much of Bret the Hitman Hart, the excellence of execution. So you have this blending of gimmick and realism, but I think the roles are kind of misplaced. I don't see Serena having the in-ring is going to be great, but the lead up I think is going to be lacking because Tony's such a gimmick. I don't think that Serena can match everything that surrounds Tony and Mariah May and Luther and the whole nine. Then you have the Mina Shirakawa situation that's on the outskirts.
Right. And I think a lot of us are kind of foreseeing or armchair booking that Mariah May versus Tony Storm is ultimately the real money feud. The feud where we believe that's where Timeless Tony's going to drop the title. I mean, Mariah May's been doing great work, social media, on AEW TV. I just think that's also, this should be fun, and I'm so happy Serena Deeb is in this position and is prominently featured now. It is a juxtaposition of characters, Mike. I think also there's just there's a desire for Mariah May to ultimately be the one that goes over on Tony, which I think is going to happen, but I hope Serena Deeb versus Tony Storm doesn't feel like an afterthought in Vegas at the end of the month.
Let me ask you a question concerning the Serena and Tony. Well, matter of fact, Tony Storm and Mariah May's situation. Do you think this is eerily similar to, I guess, 2 years ago now? The situation with DMD and Jamie Hayter, in which DMD, she was the champion.
Yeah.
And then Jamie Hayter became the champion. Everybody was kind of waiting for DMD, one of them to turn, but they never turned.
Right.
Do you think they're actually going to pull the trigger on this turn?
I do. Yeah, I miss both talents, by the way. I hope we get Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter back soon. Shout out to them. Yeah, no, I think it's going to be definitely different. I think we're going to get a turn. I'm not sure if that's Tony turning on Mariah or Mariah turning on Tony, because I'm a believer now that we could see a babyface Mariah May. But I would argue conventional wisdom would be she turns on Tony. Hot girl grabs. Yeah, no, I think this is going to have a different outcome, though. Very similar, but I think we're actually going to get the payoff of getting that rivalry this time. It's needed.
Do you think the payoff is going to be at All in London?
Yes. Great call. That makes all the sense.
Okay. And one last thing, because I would be remiss if I didn't marry the two. Why does it seem like the TBS, I know they're two different divisions, but why does it seem like people are slotted in the TBS division and there's never no crossover?
Yeah.
I mean, this goes back to the days of Cargo.
Exactly. We were chatting off air about this. It's a phenomenal point. I agree. They are they feel they are mutually exclusive. I don't want them to be.
Like, in a perfect world, to me, if you have the TBS champion, like for instance, if when Jay Cargo had that long run, you mean to tell me even if it wasn't for title title for title, you mean to tell me there was no way y'all could fit the TBS champion versus the world champion on a pay-per-view? I mean, that would be a way to show and to expose what deep of a women's roster that you have that warrants you having 2 championships.
Right.
Never mind about the fact that Athena is supposed to be doing good work on ROH, and everybody else crosses back and forth between ROH. Athena, no. You keep your behind there with your minions. Keep them over there.
It's perplexing. It's been perplexing.
That's just me. Like I said, I don't really want to poke holes in everything because it feels like I'm nitpicking. But these are things that I can't ignore.
One, and these are conversations that are happening, in the community regarding AEW. Obviously, Brad and I, we have a lot of affinity for AEW, but it's important to be honest with what we see, and especially these concerns, Mike, that are founded, regarding the booking, regarding the consistency. We know you're always going to bring the real, so don't hesitate. This is what we want. This is what we need. Speaking of which, and yes, we're going long, by the way. When Mike Steph,
I can see Brad like
when Mike Steph, when Mike Steph graces you with his presence, you just gotta see where the conversation goes and just run with it. So, Mike, last one here, and then we'll transition to our final segment on this glorious episode. Swerve Strickland, AEW's first Black World Champion. In my notes, I wrote down 2 simple words in terms of what I want to ask you. Vibe check. This is a big deal in a company, a new company, new wrestling organization where we've wanted diversity at the top of the roster. We've gotten it on the women's side of things: Nyla Rose, Jade Cargill, Thunder Rosa, Riho, so on and so forth. On the men's side, the World Championship, it hasn't been there over the past, again, 4+ years. But Swerve, not only is he champion now, but he is prominently featured on television, which frankly I've enjoyed. The promo time, the match against, he opened Collision after the NBA playoff game. He fought Claudio Castagnoli in the main event. Great match. Even this week opens Dynamite. Christian Cage returns and attacks him, sets up the match for Double or Nothing. Really love the use of him as champion thus far, really investing in him as one of your top guys. Your thoughts on everything I just said, and again, just overall in terms of the vibe check. I think something that I've not spoken about on air, and frankly, nor have I seen it on other shows with lots of clout in the community, where we're at with him being the guy chosen for this milestone. I think from an in-ring perspective and from a character perspective, he's undeniable. His last year has been fantastic. Outside of the ring, I know you'll get into this because you and I have talked about the career of Swerve at length before. This is like a very specific moment here, but I think it really matters when he put out that video on social media. Obviously, he does music on the side and he's very talented. When he put out months and months ago, this is even, I think, going back to 2023, Mike, I should have looked this up. He posted, I think it was on IG, this quick clip of a song he was recording, and part of the line was like, got rid of my old chick because she was black and ugly. My recollection is there was no context about it. The reception, expectedly, was not positive toward this clip. The clip is removed and then never to be spoken of again on wrestling podcasts. Certainly, obviously not on television. And it's just kind of expunged because his in-ring work is so amazing. The rivalry with Hangman happens, and then he's the guy to beat Joe, and it's celebratory. But I would be lying to you, Mike, if during Dynasty, during the main event, I felt conflicted. It just, we had Kofi Mania years ago. And I think that was kind of euphoric for the whole community. For Swerve, especially given that recent lyric, from months and months ago, and the lack of conversation around it, the lack of any acknowledgement about it from him, I felt like, man, I'm so glad this is happening. but I just that was my reaction. Just I don't know. Your thoughts, Mike?
I think the feeling that you had or that you're expressing, a lot of people probably felt that same way. But in some ways, I believe it was self inflicted on his part because he never, when people were trying to give him his flowers, he didn't want to accept them. I guess in the way that he felt that they should have been given. It's almost like, while I understand to a certain degree what mindset he was having of, okay, I don't want you to look at me as just a black wrestler. I want you to look at me as a wrestler who is black. To a certain, that's the best way to paraphrase it. But when so few of our people are put into positions of prominence in these major federations, major organizations, and you're, I wouldn't say chosen, but you've worked to the point that you're getting the groundswell of support, and our community is behind you and trying to, like, look, all right, he's one of us, or we see something that we can relate to on screen. Even in the plainest point of view of just our witch squad, our hue, and then you're like, nah, I'm good. Like I appreciate it, but I'm good. I don't really need you. Then when you do reach the accolades that you achieved, it kind of rings hollow. Now I could nitpick and say, well, his form of quote unquote hip hop is maybe not my cup of tea. Is the way he represents the way he the way he interprets the culture isn't the way that I would. Yeah, I could do that because to me it's more rock than hip hop to a certain degree. But that would be nitpicking out, and I'm going to get off track with that. But I feel like people who feel a certain way, who feel uncomfortable with championing him, have a right to feel that way. At the same time, I'm going to kind of go a little bit left, continuing what you were saying, but I'm going to go a little bit left with the way he was positioned coming off of Dynasty, because I guarantee if that was anybody else who just won the world championship, they would have been leading off, or they would have had a very prominent spot on the next TV show that organization had. There's no way, no reason why coming off his history-making performance, being the first Black AEW champion, that you started off Dynamite with the implosion of the Best Friends. Then you have him have eliminator match against Kyle Fletcher.
It was random. It was random. Yeah.
And then you say, well, we're going to save him for his victory lap on Collision. Collision is your B show. I don't care how much of extra eyeballs you're going to get based on the NBA playoffs. It's like now you're playing with the numbers instead of just saying, look, we put the belt on him for a reason. He's our guy. Focus on him. You could have had him at the very beginning, and you could have had bookended that episode with the elite beatdown at the end, and then you fast forward into the next either Collision when he's talking about the beatdown, or the next week of Dynamite. Like, look, I'm the flag holder. I know y'all the EVPs, but guess what? I'm the flag holder. I'm the person that's running this, that's holding this company down. Me and you gonna have to sit down and figure this out, because what you did to Tony no. Let that be. If that's MJF coming off that victory, he got a microphone for 15 minutes. If that's Heyman Page, he has a microphone for 10 minutes. If that's anybody else. So this is where the lack of support, to me, bites him in the you know what, because you might have heard it here and there, but that was a lot of people just trying to figure out ways of, AEW messed up again. No, if he had that groundswell of support that, let's say, Kofi Kingston had, because guess what? When Kofi Kingston got destroyed by Brock, the Black Wrestler Killer, you still hear that. You hear that years down the line. Like,
I remember
they
exactly
did Kofi dirty.
I remember exactly where I was. I got tacos at my favorite food truck in Tucson, El Nene by Flo and Wells High School. Got my food, watched the first episode of SmackDown on Fox, and ate my tacos and cried that night. 10 seconds. Brock is the new champ. And by the way, Kofi is never getting a rematch ever again because Cain Velasquez is here.
I mean, shoot, look at it this way. Big E got screwed in a 6-way. Did he really have to get pinned?
Did he have to get pinned? No.
Did he ever get a rematch?
That was at day one.
Yes,
right?
day one.
The first
and
and
they've never
only.
had a day one since.
We should have just canceled the rest of that year at that point. That was
last thing, because I know we're going long, and I don't want to go too long. Last thing on that end. Bianca lost in 26 seconds at SummerSlam to returning Becky Lynch. So much so that Becky had to go heel because of the outcry, the outrage that they did Bianca dirty. I don't hear that coming from how. Shoot, it's almost, and I'm gonna keep this PG. But do you think when's the last time a newly crowned AEW champion had to work on all 3 shows? Work, not do a promo. Work, like, boy, you gonna work. You gonna give us these matches. Just saying. Yes. Do you hear outcry? Because guess what? When people wanted to champion him and when people wanted to give him his flower and say, look, you one of us, we're gonna support you. He said, nah, I'm good. Nah, take me off that list. I'm good. So, like I said, I could see both ways, and that's my opinion, and I'll keep it at that.
Yeah. Well, Mike, luckily, we are not done speaking about art, speaking about representation, speaking about blackness as well, in art, nonetheless. This is it, Mike. It's time for our final segment. It's the rap beef edition of What Happened Here. Let's hit the music.
What happened here?
Mike, where to begin on this one? This is really the main event of this particular episode, this very special episode of GI. I've been waiting for it. I think you have been waiting for it as well. Of course, we got to address the biggest rivalry in entertainment from the past week. Drake versus Kendrick Lamar. On March 22nd, Future and Metro Boomin dropped an album. Kendrick dropped the verse on the song Like That, letting everyone know there ain't a big 3, there's just Big Me. J. Cole dropped 7-Minute Drill, but apologized and left the group chat 48 hours later. Wise move. Drake releases Push-Ups and Tailor-Made Freestyle. Brad and I talked about the use of AI, channeling Tupac and Snoop. Very curious move by Drizzy Drake. Kendrick then releases Euphoria and 616 in LA. And Mike, on Friday night, Drake drops a 7-minute plus video entitled Family Matters, crushing the Good Kid Mad City van and doing some more. Less than an hour later, Kendrick drops Meet the Grams. And then on Saturday, he also drops Not Like Us. Hopefully you caught all that. What do you make of this rivalry that's been fizzling for over a decade, but has exploded within the last 72 hours? And thinking specifically about Not Like Us, my favorite song that we've gotten throughout this rivalry. I mean, people are playing it, are stepping to it, are dancing to it. It's really good. Mike, second part of this question. Is this over? should we be using the Vince Carter gif? You remember that dunk contest, Vinsanity?
Oh yeah. I don't see how Drake comes back from this because he's got picked apart with precision. I think his arrogance has been his worst enemy because he was popping big, you know what, when he dropped twice, and he was like, "Nah, Kendrick, nah, you gotta get out of this. I'm waiting. You on the clock? You on the clock? Come on. Be careful what you ask for." Kendrick said at the very beginning of when he started responding during Euphoria, he laid out his whole plan. He laid out what he was going to expect. He laid out the ground rules, and he said, "This is how we're going to go. This is how we're going to do it." And it seemed like Drake fell for the mousetrap every single time. He said, "Yeah, you know, he's going to which way? He's going to go on Instagram. He's going to come up with the memes, and then he's going to try to do something for the club, and he's going to try to make a hit out of it, and then he's going to try to do this. He's going to try to do that." And that's what he did. That's what he tried. And don't get me wrong, some of the tracks were good, but his focus was too wide ranging. Like he was going after Future, he was going after Metro Boomin, he was going after ASAP Rocky, he was going after Weeknd. Kendrick was going after you. Nobody else. You. My personal favorite, because that's just the type of person I am, is Meet the Grams. Because it was
Dear Adonis. I'm sorry, he's your father.
Yeah, it was surgical. It was that's something like, "Look, I told you to keep my family's name out your mouth." Period. He told him at the beginning of Euphoria, leave the women and kids out of it. What did Drake do? Yeah, your best friend. I think your best friend is actually your son's father or your child's father. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. You know which guy? He mentioned his woman's name by name. Yeah, Whitney and the Bodyguard or whatever. Okay. All the lies you say about me will make me tell all the truths about you. Now, was their lines crossed? Perhaps. But it doesn't seem like Kendrick is to the point of, okay, maybe I went over the line. Maybe it's almost like he's on a crusade of, do y'all know what's been playing in front of your face for all these years? Listen, you listen to the song, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. There's a lot of innuendos. Matter of fact, not a lot of innuendos, a lot of accusations, straight up calling you by your name, calling your circle by what they do. The artwork on Not Like Us, I didn't realize that was artwork. Those signals were people on a sex registry.
I had no idea either. That's what you sent me the background of that. I did not know that.
I mean, there's always been scuttlebutt back and forth. It's like, okay, listen, I have nothing to hide. Whatever dirt you could get on me, it's not worse than the dirt that I already have on you.
Yeah, I got people in your camp, right? He said a line, I forget on which song because there's been so many, but he said basically like, 20% of your roster on OVO is working for me. Like some mob boss, like espionage. We brought in espionage into this rap beef, Mike.
The last thing I'll say, when it comes to Drake and strictly rap battling, Drake only responds to people who he thinks he can win or he could beat. Did he really respond to Pusha? Once Pusha dropped Story added on, that was it. Then all of a sudden you have Jay Prince. Yeah, that's not how we're going to do it. We're going to have to sit down and, you and Kanye are going to have to sit down. No, it wasn't Kanye. Talk to that man. Talk to Pusha T. He's the one. He didn't want any smoke from Pusha. Joe Budden, tell you the truth, Kendrick is pulling a Joe Budden move by just, card after card after card after card after card. You can't keep up.
Kendrick, he was really wise about it, Mike. He waited to respond. Where's Kendrick? Oh, Drake's, like you said, Drake's feeling himself. Oh, maybe we're not going to get a response from Kendrick. And then he was just waiting, biding his time, and is now hitting us in rapid succession. It was a brilliant move by him. And I shouldn't even use was. It is, because I suspect this is not the end of the rivalry. Who knows? By the time we drop this, there may be other content.
Now, there's one last thing. I just heard this morning, prepping for this. I think in Not Like Us, he makes a insinuation that he has at least about 5 more. So, like you said, it's not over. It's all right. Do you want to take your losses now? You want to just cut your losses right now, or do you want to continue? Because right now, I don't believe it's ever going to go to a street level of physicality. But at the same time, the way the climate is right now, especially with this last one being so West Coast heavy, and Drake actually introduced the usage of the West Coast by using the AI as Snoop. And I believe they this is different than in the 90s with Pac and Biggie, just for the amount of money that they have. Like they will never be in a position to get touched. But it's very interesting how they're going to be able to lower the climate on what's building. Because right now, Kendrick is like, look, I don't like what you stand for. It's not has nothing to do with rap. I don't like what you stand for, but guess what? I'm going to rap in a way that everybody will understand exactly why I don't like what you stand for. And there's nothing you can do about that. And once everybody gets it in their head of whether it's true or false, oh, this is what this dude is about. Listen, he might still be able to make his money, but he will never be what he was prior to this battle.
The man said, "You're not a colleague. You're a colonizer." Mike, that's when I said, okay, I've been the biggest Drake fan, one of the biggest that I know. Again, long documented, my relationship with him has been, and his music has been fractured for years. But if we're talking 2009 to 2015, I mean, like that's my guy. But you're not a colleague, you're a colonizer. That's just I'm fascinated to see what's next. Final thing I want to say, Mike, I was even looking at their Instagrams. Obviously all of us have, I guess, over the last few days, but in terms of just comparing their following, not that this is everything. Kendrick, I believe 22 million followers on Instagram last I checked. You want to guess how many followers Drake has on there?
Well, Kendrick has 22 million.
22 million.
Shoot. Drake has what? I would think Drake had more followers, right?
He certainly does have more followers. In fact, he has 146 million.
I wonder how many he's dropping.
Unfollow. We'll have to revisit this at some point. But then the conversation has been, okay, it's two-part, right? Like, is Drake going to lose this rap beef? Seems highly likely if he hasn't already. But then where does Drake go from here? Is Drake dead, figuratively? I'm of the mindset that no. I mean, his fans are so loyal to him. I've seen this in real time, Mike. His fans are so loyal to him. He was here in Glendale for a concert. So many people bought tickets, they had to add a second show in Glendale, Arizona. He has such a huge appeal. He's built such a loyal fan base that they really view him. I know he calls himself the sixth god, but he is like a god figure to them. He can drop anything, and people are gonna love it. People are gonna ride for him. I don't think he's done, but I am fascinated to see what, to your point, Mike, what the fan base, what the Drake stands do next. Because Kendrick's accusations, They're pretty heavy. They're not just I'm a better rapper than you. There are some other words that were shared. I'm fascinated to see what happens there, Mike. But oh my
Especially in the
gosh.
age of Diddy.
Especially in the age of Diddy, we had Surviving R. Kelly there. And then I'm also fascinated with, Drake's blackness being a question throughout his career. Of course, definitely during Pusha T, right? Story of Adidon. We saw the pictures there. But as someone who's also of mixed race, it seems like Drake has 147 million followers, millions upon millions of dollars he's earned in his career. And yet it appears that he still struggles with his identity and his blackness. So part of me is like, wow, this guy's the biggest pop star in the world, arguably. And yet he still struggles with his identity, it would seem. So Kendrick calling that out, oh, you get black features to validate your blackness, but you're not accepted by us, never have been and never will be for X, Y, and Z reason. That's gotta cut him kind of deep. I'm fascinated to see what's next, Mike. You and I spoke before we recorded. We could have just one episode on tracking this, but I'm so glad we addressed it. That leads us into the final portion of this episode, Mike. What did we miss?
Shoot, we missed the presence of Mr. Winchester.
That we did. That's the right answer.
We missed that.
Shut up,
we missed an opportunity to actually share back and forth stories of one day when you have children. So hopefully, and I want to say this on air, so it actually holds me to it, and hopefully it holds him to it. And I know he's probably going to be like, Mike, really? I invite you to the Salty Thoughts of Mike Steph sometime during your off time during the summer, so we can have this long overdue episode between me and yourself. Maybe we could have our own little one day when we have kids. I got 4, you got 1. Shoot, maybe I don't know. But yeah, I can't think of anything else. I think we done covered all the bases, at least on my part. Because we're like 21 minutes over the time that normally. So yeah, that's my fault. But listen, sue me. Shoot, it is what it is.
No,
I love y'all so much.
You know how much we love you. Brad sent, speaking of dudes I love, Brad Winchester, shout out to him. He sent me a list of his what we missed. So I'm going to run through them here. Kyrie's face hitting the camera on Backlash. Ethan Page's release from AEW. Brad wrote Johnny, Ace, and Vince. He also sent me, he put me on to this. There is a gentleman, I have it right here in front of me. There is a gentleman named Tumaj Salehi. He's an Iranian rapper, and Brad wrote he's the more noteworthy rapper this week. He has been sentenced to death by the Iran government for, quote, flaming them in his lyrics. This is all over YouTube. You can find more information, but shout out to Brad for keeping us abreast of this news. That is something I'm still processing. And then finally, the season finale of Oak Island didn't find treasure, but they found more dates that keep putting the range of human occupation back. I'm sure we'll get more details from Brad upon his glorious return. Mike, finally, I have 2 quick notes. Lola Vice defeated Natalya in an NXT Underground match on the Spring Break-In main event. Talk about another star coming up from NXT. It's incredible. Lola's really translating, and that was a really big moment for both ladies. And then finally, season 21 of The Bachelorette officially drops July 8th. Jen Tran, the 26-year-old physician assistant from Miami, is the franchise's first Vietnamese lead. We back, Mike. I'm already set. We're gonna get the WNBA all over our screens this summer. We got The Bachelorette. We got Kehlani dropping an album. Rhapsody, my favorite rapper, is dropping an album later this month. This is gonna be a tremendous rest of 2024. I can't wait.
Skylar Diggins is back.
Clip it.
I'm sorry, inside joke.
Clip it. She's on the Seattle Storm now. She's further from Phoenix, but yes, Skylar Diggins is back. Can't wait to see her ball out. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Mike. That's good. That's good. Mike Steph, you're a busy man. You have the pod, the blog, the music. The list goes on and on. A true Renaissance man. What are the best ways to follow you and show love?
You can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Mike Steffens _. You can follow me on Instagram at Mike _Steph. And actually, you can follow me on TikTok. I'm actually very, very active on TikTok. Well, I put out a lot of content on TikTok for as long as we have it. I don't know. I think that bill passed. I'm not sure. But yeah, you can follow me at TikTok at Mike Steffens _. Yeah, that's right. _. And yeah, like I said at the beginning, I have a blog at WordPress, so it's MikeStephOrg.wordpress.com. And of course, the mothership, the flagship, if you will, my own podcast, The Salty Thoughts of Mike Steph. You can catch me on all streaming platforms where podcasts are available. And you can catch me at the YouTube channel at Mike Steph. One last thing, because I would be remiss, being the fact that I'm actually on the 19 Media Group banner. Me and the Mojo King, we drop, well, during the football season, we drop each and every Thursday for Hidden Gems Football. You can catch all the back episodes on the YouTube channel that you're watching right now, the 19 Media Group. We talk about ins and outs of the rosters, betting spreads, fantasy plays, and I'm quite sure coming up, probably starting in the June, beginning of July, we'll be getting you ready for the 2024 NFL season. So yes, Hidden Gems Football right here on the YouTube channel of the 19 Media Group. And yeah, so check me out on that. And my episode this week of the Mike Steph podcast would be dropping probably around the time that GI drops. I think we're going to do a concurrent, so you can see at this point in time, 2.5 hours of this lovely face, this simply dashing, ravishing body on your screen, whether it's the small screen or the big screen, preferably the big screen, so you can get all this in 1080p HD or 4K where available. Yeah.
You heard it here first. The blueprint has been laid out. Now that you've watched or listened to us, thank you so much for that, by the way. Make sure you check out Mike Salty Thoughts, easy for me to say, of Mike Steph podcast and his various other platforms and channels. Mike, thank you so much for joining us on this edition. Again, we thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Gimmick Infringement is a part of 19 Media Group. You can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube via the 19 Media Group channel. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.